Waizviziva here kuti Nelson Chamisa ndiye only genuine opposition leader muZimbabwe? Ndiye munhu anokwanisa kuunderstanda politics dzemuZimbabwe, sezvo muchiziva kuti murume uyu akaita political science, akadzidza ndiloya zvekare. Ndiye munhu anokwanisa kudhila nethe regime. The regime haisi kubatira pamusoro kana kuzama kuona kunge makanyanya against the regime. Regime inoda vanhu vari state saNelson Chamisa. Muri Zimbabwe pane zviri kuitika zvakawanda, but ndinoda kuti ndinyatsodongonodza nyaya iyi ndichibvisa kuBBC Zimbabwe. Ndivo vamwe vevanhu vane muono, kwete vamwe vanhu vamuri kuswera muchiona muchifungidzira kuti ndo vanokuendesai kumberi. Ndine vhidhiyo rimwe randichataura nyaya panapa yekuti mega muchanyatsonzwisisa kuti tiri kubva kupi tichienda kupi. But according to BBC, iri kutaura about leadership. Kanzi Nelson Chamisa is one and only genuine opposition leader in Zimbabwe. He understands politics better than any politician in Zimbabwe. We have seen some so-called opposition leader falling in ZANU-PF traps. ZANU-PF destroyed the constitution of Zimbabwe long back. Some few weeks, we saw some opposition pretending to be defending the constitution against the 2030 agenda. Where were these opposition leaders when ED was unconstitutionally extending Malava, PV Svanda, Philip Valerius Svanda's term? Vakanga vari kupi vanhu ivavo? Ma-opposition leader vanga vari kupi? Vakadivamisa izvozvo pakawedzerwa Malava makore ake ekushanda, pakawedzerwa temu, pakawedzerwa Philip Valerius Svanda army general. Ma-opposition leaders aya ari kuita mameeting nhasi ekuti vari kudefenda constitution vanga vari kupi? In Zimbabwe, there is no rule of law. Opposition leaders should understand and admit before playing into the hands of ZANU-PF while losing focus on a real problem. The reason why those opposition stood up to have a press conference against 2030 but not against Malava and Philip Valerius Svanda is because they listen more to ZANU-PF and do what ZANU-PF want. Another faction of ZANU-PF reject the 2030 agenda. Then some opposition leader joined the faction, which is not strategic to any politician. You don't just jump in because of noise, but you use critical thinking before taking any action. ZANU-PF can use 2030 to destroy non-thinkers opposition. When we go to 2028, Chiwenga will be more popular because of sympathies from the opposition side. Opposition should focus on removing ZANU-PF, not to defend the constitution, because there is no constitution defend in Zimbabwe. Defending the 2030 agenda is like treating the symptoms of a disease. It will not work. Define the problem through the symptoms and then treat the disease. Muri Zimbabwe ndofunga nyaya yandiri kutaura pano muri kunyatsoinzwisisa. Pataurwa mashoko makukutu kuti ma-opposition leaders vari kudefenda kuti tine constitution muZimbabwe. Constitution iri kudefendwa ndeipi? Because pazvese zviri kuchiitwa neZANU-PF hapana checonstitution muZimbabwe, hamuna mutemo. Zvese zvavari kuita izvi ndezvipi izvi? Vari kuwira mumatraps eZANU-PF nekuda kwekuti kune noise iri kuitwa, and noise yacho iri kuitwa through social media. social media apaitwe noise apatongwe nyaya iripo. Main point ndekuti ZANU-PF ngaibve, ndo zviri kutaurwa izvozvo. But opposition leaders ari kubuda vachiita meetings vachitaura kuti hatidi 2030 bumbiro remutemo ratakazodai. That's why muri kuona kuti patichasvika 2028 Vice President Chiwenga vanenge va more popular than opposition leaders mamwe atinawo nhasi. Kana makada kutarisa Vice President Constantino Chiwenga, pfungwa dzavo nedzaNelson Chamisa dziyagona kuda kunoti fananei, nekuda kwekuti mastrategies avo akada kuti fananei. Havasi kungowira muzvinhu, vane patience dzekuita zvinhu. Saka opposition leader ari kubuda social media achiita mapress, hatizive kuti zvamuri kuita ndezvipi, but chinzwai conversation
for this particular particular implementation
in my conversation with you,
resolution
I say
number 1.
Google is
So
prepared to fund,
I don't know
fund you,
whether
to fund the government
those who have prepared the court
on a
documents have
centralized
distinguished
hub.
him
And
as
we
such
discussed that this centralized
I
hub will not be
described.
for
That is to say,
Zimbabwe
one,
government
whether he's
only.
being sued as the president of
And
the
I
Republic of
said,
Zimbabwe, who
and talking
will
to James
or
Manyika,
could
the vice
assent
president of Google,
or sign that law,
we agreed
and also
that
being sued
if we put
as a president
in
of a
place
particular political party
enablers, A, B,
that
C, D,
intends
which we
to
discussed,
move the implementation of resolution
that
number
hub
1
will
as
be
the first secretary
the hub, the
of that
regional hub
particular
for the whole of
political
SADC.
party, and
And
relating
when
that
we
to
met
the
in
constitution
Victoria
of
Falls,
ZANU-PF
Honorable
and on
Minister,
who
you remember,
wields the
you
power
made that
or
statement.
center of power in
And
ZANU-PF.
parliamentarians
That's
from
my
the
response
SADC
on that
Parliamentary
particular.
Forum
Unless you want to
agreed
make a
with
follow-up,
you.
then I'll move on to what I
And
want to
that's the way
submit.
to go.
No, you can move on
And
what
if
you
you
wanted,
read
submit.
this
It's just a question, that
2025
landed in my inbox, that I was asking you. So please,
AI
just go ahead.
index report produced
I
by
hope,
Stanford
I hope that
University,
I've
you'll
done
be
justice to
clearly
that or
directed as
injustice
to
to it.
how
However,
you can
I
establish
wanted
that.
to then highlight the fact that
Relatedly, it will also give you how you
if
rope
anybody
in the private sector.
is
Government
with their
can't do it alone.
data
It will
on
show you
and
the
everything
matrix
on
of
and maybe
bringing
with lawyers around
the
and maybe,
private sector.
I mean, I don't really want to say lawyers around.
And you relieve
I regard many Zimbabweans
treasury
as if, and I've been consistent for the past 4 years,
from
that Zimbabweans,
the fiscal's burden.
we must have
So that
elementary
should be the
law
way we go.
and maybe human rights law, even at primary level, secondary level, and all that. And even elementary law at basic law, basically. The contract of law, labor, and all that. So that at least we understand. Don't leave this domain of lawyering or of knowing the law and the rights of people and the constitution to lawyers. They can mislead you on the basis that they are pulling strings in their favor. But should you have, as an accountant, as an engineer, as a data analyst, you must at least have basic law understanding so that you can challenge these lawyers, because this is a profession where you can pull things to your favor and to the favor of your client, and for you to win a case or to make money out of it, whether you lose or you don't. I mean, I've been in practice for more than 25 years in Zimbabwe, in the other jurisdictions. I know exactly what happens. So I encourage the Zimbabwean populace and citizens to push for curriculums for basic law that must be imparted in our children or on our children, and going further and elevating it even to universities, where at least even we are doing accountants or engineering, you must be conversant with law or basic laws of the country. Right. I'll go away from that one. Now, as a citizen of Zimbabwe, go to section 35 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. If I've already said it, many of us here, I think we are privileged to be having data and having looked at the Constitution of Zimbabwe, section 35 4B. I'm sure that is the section I'm not with it at the moment, but I think it must be where it defines the duties and the duties and obligations of a citizen of the Republic of Zimbabwe. I think it's section 35 4, yeah, no, not 4B, section 35.4. Zimbabwean citizens have the following duties in addition to any others imposed upon them by the law: to be loyal to Zimbabwe, to observe this constitution and respect its ideals and institutions, to observe this constitution and respect its ideals and institutions. The Constitutional Court is an institution of this particular constitution that I'm talking about. To respect the national flag, blah, blah, and the national anthem. And lastly, to the best of their ability to defend Zimbabwe and its sovereignty. Reading that together with the jurisdiction of the Constitutional Court, if anybody is here with me on the jurisdiction of the Constitutional Court, you actually realize that the jurisdiction of the Constitutional Court is limited to certain functions. And those functions are obligatory on anybody who wants to seek the interpretation of the Constitution. Whether sinister or not sinister, go to chapter 6 that deals with the legislature, and the one that then deals with the judiciary. The Constitutional Court's purpose in terms of this constitution, that every citizen is obliged to respect it and to abide by it as a duty in terms of the constitution. If you are a citizen of Zimbabwe, it then reads as follows. The Constitutional Court has got an obligation. I understand that the Constitutional Court has got inadequacies or deficiencies from public media or those that have interacted with it, whether it is political or general disputes between men and men, women and women, or company to company, or men against company, or women against company. They've made pronunciations with regards to what the Constitution says in a particular dispute. Yes, warring is an issue where the Constitutional Court can be criticized for dealing with certain matters in a selective fashion where it can be regarded as not being consistent about its rulings when it comes to political matters. That is not my mandate or my domain at the moment. My domain at the moment is to then impart knowledge on what the Constitutional Court can do or cannot do. The Constitutional Court is there to determine this particular issue where we have a problem with regards to the extension up to 2030 and any other related matters. It is the Constitutional Court that can make a determination and interpret the Constitution in regard to that. What then happens? You then bring to court what we normally call in legal terms a stated case. A stated case, it is a case. I don't know whether this particular Constitutional Court application is a stated case, but for now, I think it is a case that seeks to get direct access to the Constitutional Court for purposes of interpreting or dealing with a particular issue that is in the public domain or any such that can affect the rights of the people. So a stated case then is a matter that after they have been granted direct access, like I said before, people can then join in as parties to contribute and deal with it. But only if it has been, only if the direct access has been granted. And the Constitutional Court is mandated in terms of the Constitution to consider matters where direct access is to be granted. And in this case, it can decline direct access. But by and large, and as I look at it, the Constitutional Court is going to allow direct access and to anticipate the 2028 or 2030 agenda to say, come, bring your arguments. We grant you direct access. Whosoever is concerned or interested, can they bring their own joinder of party and make submissions so that globally or wholesomely we can then deal with this issue holistically? So a stated case, as I say, it revolves around a legal question to a higher court to seek opinion on specific questions of law, particularly where no factual disputes arise. This is specifically the law. You don't need to put Mnangagwa on the stand where he's cross-examined. No. It is only to deal with matters of the law and not factual issues. The resolution number 1, it has nothing to do with the Concord. What you are actually asking the court to do is to interpret the purpose for which a particular clause is there and how it must be done to achieve the amendment of a particular section of the Constitution. This is where I see the proponents of anti-constitutional amendment and the pro have actually missed it on the basis that those who were anti could have or must have been proactive enough, as we have advised 4 weeks ago, to go to court and set up a stated case and not being a respondent, but being the applicant and join whosoever is necessary and interested to protect the rights of the citizens of Zimbabwe. I, for one, I'm anti-2030 extension, and for the record, although I am a sympathizer and a supporter of ZANU-PF and not a member of ZANU-PF, but I am of the view that it is not appropriate and advisable and desirable that the current president will extend his reign as the president of Zimbabwe by an extension to 2030. But the problem is a resolution has been passed. The intent or the objective is to implement it. How can it be stopped? The only process that can stop that, in terms of what we are talking about, and us as saying we are in a constitutional democracy, and as I have stated that you are a citizen of Zimbabwe with certain obligation to observe the Constitution, you then have to go via the Constitution to challenge that particular implementation of the resolution. Unfortunately, the resolution has not been tabled in Parliament, and for that reason, as I said, the other application can be dismissed, or it can be allowed on the basis that it is out of the public interest, that the Concord is seized with this matter and people can come. People can come, argue, import lawyers from Nicaragua, South Africa. Some will not be allowed to submit, and then what will happen? It will prolong until such time that the current president would have achieved 2030. And as somebody has stated, the Morgan Tsvangirai case was eventually withdrawn as a result of the fact that they were now getting into the GNU, and it was withdrawn, but no judgment is given for more than 5 or 8 years. Now, as a practicing lawyer in Zimbabwe, then I'm no longer practicing in Zimbabwe. I'm a law consultant and security consultant. I'll tell you that I've been involved with many constitutional cases with my brother Douglas Monzora. Whether he's bought or is not bought, I still believe that he has been a very consistent person for the opposition. If he got some side incentives here and there, it's just like any other politician. But I regard him to be having been consistent. And him with me, we really argue, and we are not in the same boat. He argues for opposition. I then used to argue for ZANU-PF. But I'll tell you for a fact now that Monzora, at the moment, he is really anti-2030, and I've shared notes with him on how this can be done, including applying to court on a stated case. Unfortunately, therefore, in these spaces, someone tapped in, or someone had also their own astuteness to then anticipate my advice and many other persons' advice to then approach the court. So this is where we are now, and I'll tell you, if this application is persisted with, it is important for the BTs, the diaspora, and the Igbo Mandazas to come in, to apply, to be joined as parties to this application. And I'll tell you, as many respondents can be there and allowed, even those that can be allowed by the court as friends of the court, it will then ensure that this case is a matter that can be determined in the next 5 years. And effectively, therefore, 2030 would have been or will be achieved using the lawfare part. Unfortunately, we are a constitutional democracy, and you as a citizen, you are obliged in terms of Section 35 as a citizen of Zimbabwe, unless you have relinquished it. And if you have relinquished your citizenship of Zimbabwe, how are you going to challenge Zimbabwean laws or the affairs and administration of Zimbabwe when you are not a citizen? So, conclusively, saying that the constitution of Zimbabwe is not there is a misnomer. However, the Nelson Chamisa statement is a political statement where he believes that even if we are to adhere to the constitution has been bastardized one way or the other, and surely to then consider taking the government of the day about the constitution and constitutional provisions, it is not sound for a Zimbabwean citizen who has gotten tired of laws of Zimbabwe not being applied in an equilibrium or egalitarian manner. That's how I look at what Nelson Chamisa was saying. I'm not a fan of him, but I think his statement, I can interpret it in that manner. Uncle Jed, I yield to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Audio Jungle.